Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Need. I'm with Castle Ventures. And I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining our webinar today, Flags and Tags, the Hidden Gems of the Varonis Solution. We encourage everyone to ask questions. We're putting this on for your benefit. So if you have questions about flags and tags and what we're covering today or anything regarding Varonis, please put the questions in the questions bar of Zoom, and we'll take the time we need to answer the questions. This is a 10-minute Tuesday webinar, so it's going to be a fast and furious 10 minutes of great information, and then we'll allow whatever time we need for questions. Our presenter today is Arthur Hedge. He's the president and co-founder of Castle Ventures. So let me pass it over to Arthur. We'll be kicking things off today.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending upon where you are. We have no Europeans on that I can tell, so we'll hold the good off and the good evenings. Again, as Paul said, my name is Arthur Hedge. I'm the president of Castle Ventures, who we call ourselves the Varonis Optimization Company. And we use the product extensively every day and probably know more about the solution than anyone outside of Varonis. So with that, I'm going to quickly go through flags, tags, and notes, which are three features in Varonis that we use extensively to manage our work within the tool. And you'll see how we use that in the next 10 minutes or so. We will go through and explain some of the things that we do to get value out of Varonis using flags, tags, and notes. So I'll talk about how to create them, manage them, things like that. We will talk about when to use a flag, when to use a tag, how to automatically tag and flag folders, how to manage projects, and how to use them in reports and searches. But as I mentioned, they're kind of the hidden gems of Varonis because you can use them to flag folders, files, groups, users. So if you have, essentially what you can do is group together like resources with characteristics that are not in the Varonis tool. So if you wanted to flag all of the users who are over 6 feet tall, you could go create a flag called 6 feet tall and apply it to those individual users. If you want to tag all the folders, that contain video files created in, Acrobat, you could do that as well. So with that capability, you can come up with sets of information that you can use to do lots of interesting things with Varonis. And we'll talk about some of those examples as we go through this. Now, the first thing you need to be able to do is to enable them. They're not enabled by default in Varonis. So within the management console, you have to go in and flag the tell Varonis to start using them. And there are 3 user roles that give you the ability to do this: the enterprise manager, the system administrator, and the configuration user. And you'll see in the management console, there's the ability to turn on global flags and tags in Data Advantage. I'm not sure why anyone would not use this. We use them extensively. It's a great thing that you can do. And this enable assigning global flags to a rule is useful for if you own data classification. You can then have data classification apply flags to files that it discovers, especially if you're trying to do a migration project. That can be extremely helpful. Once you then do that, you have to give the user the ability to use those flags and tags. Everyone will be able to see them, but if you want somebody to be able to deal with them and add them and remove them from things, you need to enable somebody to do that. So that's kind of getting it set up within the system. Now, you can, within the Data Advantage GUI, and this is all administered through the old-fashioned Data Advantage GUI. If you go to the tools follow-up, you'll see there's the ability to configure these. Now, the difference between flags and tags is flags, you can add them to a file or a folder, and then you can go remove them as you will. Tags, you cannot be deleted. So once they've been created, they're stuck in your system. There are reasons to do that if something on legal hold or compliance, things like that, that you don't want to change, you could use that. All right. I tend not to use tags very often. I'm a flag person. I figure, we're going to trust people not to delete things they shouldn't, and we'll go through that and do this with this. So you can manually create them in here. You can also upload them. So you can build a spreadsheet, and this information is available if somebody needs it. You can upload this CSV, and it'll tell you all the different flags that you've got and the different colors that that you can assign here. So you can do them manually. You can do them by uploading them. All right. Once they're in your system, there are 3 methods that you can assign follow-up indicators, and that's how Varonis refers to these objects. There are 3 ways that you can assign them to an object. You can right-click on an individual folder and apply those flags, tags, and notes. You can upload flags and tags in bulk, and you can assign those flags in data classification rules. And all 3 of them are useful in various ways, and we'll talk about that. So if you right-click on an object, this happens to be a folder, you'll see you've got 3 different options here. You've got the ability to assign flags, you've got the ability to assign tags, and you've got the ability to assign notes. Notes are a free text field that you can apply to any object, and that can be up to 500 characters. So, if you're doing something on this particular folder and you don't want anybody else to touch it, you can put a note on here saying, hey, I'm working on this, and I'll put my initials in it and say, I expect to have this, resolved by April 15th. So you can go in and touch it after that point in time. Or one of the things that we like to use notes for is if we're assigning ownership to folders and we're doing our first pass, the analyst who's doing that work will put in a note saying, hey, I assigned Arthur Hedge as the owner of this folder because he's got permissions to this folder and he's the only one who's accessed it over the past 90 days, or whatever the case may be. So notes can be very useful to track your work, especially on projects that involve more than one person and that are going to be long-lived. So you might forget something. If you notice something about a particular folder that needs to be fixed, you can put it in the notes so that you can come do that later. So that's by right-clicking on this stuff. And if you go in, you can also upload follow-up indicators the same way that we created flags. We can upload a CSV format. And there are different formats that are available depending upon whether you're adding a flag to a folder, removing a flag from a folder. There are a bunch of different options here, but in large projects, this can be very useful to learn how to build this CSV files. That information is available in the Varonis documentation. If you need any help there, shoot me a note and I'll show you some examples of this. The third way we can apply flags is through data classification. So you can go in and you see we have the ability to assign global flags to a particular folder based upon it, a rule being hit, and we can flag all of those files that get discovered. And that's useful because you may want to produce a particular report and use the flags, and then you could, remove them, things like that. So those can be useful as well. So we can directly apply them to folders. We can use it through data classification, and we can make those changes through uploading them in bulk. All right, some of the use cases that we use this for: data migrations, right? So if you're going to migrate 100 folders, we can create different flags to talk about what status it is, right? We're going to exclude these from being moved. We can mark them as moved when we're done, when it's in progress, if it's ready to move, whatever the case may be. For each project that you're going to have, you're going to come up with slightly different states of the process, the migration process, and we tend to create flags that represent those states so that we know where we are in the process. You can also use them to track what we call our high value targets. So you may have your top 10 folders: compensation, investor relations, litigation folders that we flag with a high value target flag, and we'll create reports that will list, hey, give me a list of all my high value targets. So when the auditor shows up, you can say, hey, here's my most 10 sensitive folders. This is what we do to protect them. So flags can be done to things like that. Also, that you could do it for security groups, right? These are the 5 groups that give you access to financial data for SOX, something like that. You can use them within reporting, so they can be used as a selection criteria or a filter, as Varonis likes to refer to them. In almost all reports, you can use a global flag as a selection criteria. And I'll give you an example where we use this in kind of a creative way. One of the things that you have in Varonis is you can't run certain reports, like a 4B report, say, give me a list of all of the permissions on the protected folders. I only care about protected folders. You can't, there's no protected folder indicated in the 4B permissions report. So if you have a lot of these, hundreds of them, you could go in the 4F report, identify all of the protected folders there, take that, create a protected folder flag, apply those to those 100 files that you care about, upload them, then rerun the 4B report and add that protected folder flag to them so that you only get the protected folders in your permissions report. We do that all the time in remediation efforts, okay? And then we also use it in ways to track migration. So you'll notice here, you can have reports put the flags, tags, and notes in the output of reports. So that in this particular case, you'll notice we've got 4 or 5 different flags here in this flags column. Migration, migrate, complete, which means, it's part of the migration project. The plan was to migrate it and we're done. So we use all these flags to track the state of the migration effort. Now, in this particular case, what we've done is we've taken the Varonis data and then run it through a PowerShell script that builds a spreadsheet that actually takes all these flags and puts it into human readable form, right? So we can see the planned action on all these folders is to migrate them, and this one's excluded, what the state of the migration is, what the exclusion state is, if we're going to exclude it, are we going to delete it or archive it, all that kind of stuff. So we get very creative in terms of how we use flags to track our progress. And finally, we can use flags within DatAlert rules. So I'll go back to that, high value targets or other things. In this particular case, hey, if we flag something as, compliance protection, meaning compliance has told us not to do anything, and somebody actually makes a change to this particular folder, we're going to go and create an alert on it, right? So if somebody makes a permission change on any compliance protection folder, we're going to alert on that. And we could do this, and so you don't have to create a new rule for each individual folder. All you have to do is go flag the folder within the work area saying it is protected according to compliance, and then this rule will automatically pick up on that, within 10 or 15 minutes after you apply the rule. So flags can be very, very useful. We use them every single day. I recommend that you do the same. And if you have any other questions about different ideas about how to use the flags, please feel free to shoot me an email and reach out, and we will try to answer your questions. Anyone have any questions at the moment? And I'm going to bring up my questions panel, so give me a minute here to do that. All right. Somebody asked me, is there any significance to the colors of the flags? I actually don't believe so. I think it's just a visual in the work area. We don't tend to use the colors very often, because in the work area, if you've got more than one flag, then it tends to be turned gray. And since we use flags all the time, the colors get blurred out, and so there's no value to us in using colors. And I don't think there's any other rhyme or reason to the colors. I've never seen like a selection that says, give me all the list of the red, flags that we might want to use to say those would be our high value targets, and we'd have multiple types of high value targets just by the color. So the answer to that question is I don't think there's any significance to the colors. That being said, some people are particular about it. I happen to like blue, so all my flags are blue. So if you, just as a joke, if you go back to my colors here, you'll see I made all the flags the exact same color because I don't care what they are. All right. If there are no other questions, we're going to say thank you and have a great day. And if you want to ask your question live, if you want to raise a hand, I could do that as well. And we could do that as well. Otherwise, I'll wait to see if anyone pops up here. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you.